Okay, today I'm going to do my refutation speech on Janet. Janet failed to identify her proposition more clearly, so it made it more difficult to understand what she was really arguing. It was difficult to understand what her speech was arguing. Further analyzing the presentation, it became apparent that maybe her claim of fact was the advantages of frozen food. Her two supporting claims were also a little difficult to interpret, as they were not stated very clearly as well. Her two claims that I interpreted, that what she was arguing, were frozen food has more nutritional value than fresh food, and there's less prep time in frozen food than fresh food. So I'm going to start with the first one. For the first claim, Janet stated that frozen food has a more nutritional value than fresh food. A study conducted by the Discovery News found that eating fresh food as opposed to packaged frozen food can reduce your levels of exposure to toxins such as BPA and DEPH. These toxins are found in plastic. Plastic packaging is used in frozen food. BPA and DEPH are toxic. Sorry, that's kind of a little difficult to say out loud. Are toxic chemicals found to disrupt hormonal systems in both animal bodies and human bodies. They're also known to cause reproductive and respiratory problems in both animals and humans, also cancers, heart disease, and brain disorders. This information was found from WebMD. Food packaging is really the major source of the exposure to BPA and DEPH found in humans, said by Ruth and Rudel, a toxologist at the Silent Spring Institute, a research and advocacy group in Newton, Massachusetts. This study also focused on the vitamin intake on both frozen and fresh produce, and found that there is no difference in the vitamin content in both frozen and fresh food. In their second claim, Janet states that there is less prep time in frozen food consumption than there is in fresh food. She supported this by saying that frozen food produce is already cleaned and cut for the consumer. She relies more on hypothetical situations on this topic, and she fails to cite evidence to support her ideas. The question that comes to mind is, how long does it take for frozen fruit or vegetables to thaw? According to the National Center for Home and Food Preservation, frozen food should never be thawed at room temperature. Even though the center of the package is still frozen, the outside is thawing. While it's thawing, it can reach the danger zone, which is between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. While it's in this temperature danger zone that is known to food prep technicians, it's harboring bacteria that is harmful for human consumption and can lead to illnesses when consumed. An alternative and faster way to thawing could be the microwave, but it provides uneven heating patterns which can provide optimal environments for bacteria to grow and thrive. The proper way to thaw produce would be to refrigerate it. 1 pound of packaged frozen fruit takes about 6 to 8 hours to thaw properly in the refrigerator. Again, all this information that I stated was taken from the National Center for National Center for Home and Food Preservation. Fresh produce can simply be washed, so that process, I'm sure all of you guys know, takes about a couple of minutes. Once you take it out of the refrigerator, quickly wash it and cut it. So, as to conclude all my information, there's no really nutritional benefits from fresh produce. It's about the same, but there are added toxins that come with it. Also, it doesn't really ease prep time because to properly thaw things, it takes a lot longer, 6 to 8 hours, as opposed to just quickly washing and prepping fresh produce, which would probably take a couple of minutes. Thank you.
All right, Gabriel, I think that you did a good job on the two issues when you get to them. I understand that there's some confusion at the beginning, and you don't want it to make it sound like it's a criticism of the delivery of the speech. You just want to say it was unclear exactly what the claims are, and if there's a lack of clarity, you should always kind of be hesitant to accept the conclusion of the advocate in that situation. Here are the two arguments that I think that they were making, and kind of summarize those. When you did the summary, I thought you were fine. The other stuff sounded like you were kicking her in the teeth for not being clear. And that's not really the way you want to go. You just want to say, I wasn't sure what the inference was. Here's what I think it is, and here's my answers to those arguments. And by the way, I think you got them pretty accurate. The first point on the nutritional value, I thought that you demonstrated that there is a risk in the frozen foods pretty effectively. There's not really any discussion of what the advocates' arguments were on this issue of nutritional value. As I recall, it was basically this idea that frozen foods might actually have more vitamins in them because they're frozen at the time they're picked, and it's the foods that they lose their vitamin content over time, and so fresh foods, by the time they're delivered to your table, they might have lost some of their vitamin value. You did have a piece of statistical information in this research that said that they found no difference between the vitamin content there, so that addresses that issue. And then I think your argument that says that there's also a negative consequence of the packaging that is potentially problematic, I think that that's a good counterclaim on that particular point. So that worked really well. The thawing issue on the second point is an interesting point. I don't know how applicable it is to the advocate's argument on this issue. Once again, it demonstrates that there is another potential problem from eating frozen foods, which shows that they aren't necessarily as desirable as the advocate seems to be suggesting. So as a general argument, I think it's a good counterclaim. Whether it is particular to the advocate's points, I don't know. And I think that kind of what you decided was because you weren't quite sure what those arguments were, I'm just going to stick to my interpretation of what her inferences were instead of trying to analyze the evidence and the reasoning that she had, which means that there's not as much depth on those particular points. But the counterclaims, I think you did a very solid job on. All right, thank you.